pretties, fly! Ah, ha, 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 ha.
But in
Oh,
planes, not.
it's the Wicked Witch of the West too. It's
I was gonna
perfect.
say on planes instead of broomsticks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and silver-eyed instead of monkeys, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's how that works.
So, like, I want to point out that
I bet you do.
the scientific community does have something to say about this. Uh, I think they heard from at least two major scientific bodies that they could not find any substantial evidence one way or the other that cloud seeding had any effect on hailstone severity, size, or volume or otherwise. That's purely from a statistical analysis quantitative basis. Now these density plots, like the time track density, the vertically,
Vertically integrated liquid.
yes, that says one thing, the amount of precipitation or liquid in the system, but that doesn't indicate directly hail and the size of the hail and et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's where the scientific community is not able to say that the cloud seeding has any effect one way or the other, because there's no real easy way to measure how much hail fell over a given area.
I believe it's also worth noting that there was no conclusive disproof of the efficacy either.
Right, and that's what I mean. It's inconclusive.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, that's totally understandable because, like, I mean, weather itself is notoriously chaotic. It's chaotic to the point that you can make reasonably random numbers from tracking like wind in places. Like that is how some organizations get their reasonably random numbers. But yeah, I think you make an excellent point. As
Well,
much as it pains me,
it's not
because I
my
want to see that that cowboy in the sky shooting at the clouds. Um, but yeah, they did mention that it's inconclusive one way or another, and that is a big reason why Canadian governments anyway haven't jumped on the hype train for cloud seeding. And it seems like when you see governments actively going towards cloud seeding, it's something like California where they're like, "Oh sweet Jesus, we need rain. We'll do anything. Please just get it to rain more." Or something like the Chinese government going, we want a really nice event. And if there's any way we can get it to not rain on that nice crowd of people there, well, we'll go ahead and shoot rockets at that cloud.
and I think in all three cases, the conclusion has been, if the money spent and the effort spent to seed the clouds for whatever purpose it is has any sort of effect in the positive sense, like, so if it does actually mitigate the hail and if it does cause rain where you want it to, then it's worth that time and effort and money.
Yeah.
Versus not doing anything, right? So, like, from the insurance company's basis, like, they run it through a risk cost benefit calculator type deal, that one that they all use probably.
Yeah, that one.
That one. They decided that it's worth that nominal cost to fund this initiative, and the people who are doing it, they get to fly planes into storms, which I presume they like. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it.
It seems like some adrenaline junkies were in the crowd. Yes.
Yeah. Well, even the guy presenting, you could tell, like, as he was watching that video, he was like reliving it in his head.
Oh yeah, he
right?
got a big grin across his face whenever he was describing his time in the planes.
Yeah, it was cool to see, like, that was something he was able to do. And then, from the health and safety standpoint, like, if these governments and the scientific community haven't found it, the silver iodide that they use to have an effect on the health of the people, having that precipitation have that silver iodide in it, then it's not a big deal if these companies want to privately fund it. Like, it's not enough for the governments to put money into it. And I don't know if in places like California, if the governments are the ones putting the money into it. I don't know.
I thought it was, but I mean, it could be wrong.
Yeah, like hearing that this is privately funded, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the other ones are privately funded as well. So, but I think my initial reaction hearing that is a privately funded thing, I'm like, well, like, what gives them the right to decide what places get hail and what places don't, right? But then it's like, okay, well, if the scientific community doesn't even think that it may or may not have an effect, then it's like, well, I guess I'm okay just knowing that it's probably going to hail where it wants to anyway.
Yeah, in a reasonably liberal society, it's like, well, I can't prove that it does or does not do anything, so fill your boots, I guess. As long as I don't have to pull your body out of somewhere, do what you want.
Pull your body out of somewhere?
Yeah, well, that's why there are certain rules around, like, I want to say wearing life jackets and stuff like that, because it's expensive to haul dead bodies out of the water. And so that's really why it's illegal.
To boat without a life jacket?
Or things like that. Like, I think suicide is illegal in certain places, but it's more...
Isn't it illegal everywhere?
I don't know. I'm now talking out of my ass.
I'm fairly sure suicide is illegal.
There's certain things that are outlawed, but I've heard, like, the immediate counter argument is like, oh, well, you're going to be dead, so who cares? But they're like, no, because they have to fish you out of wherever, and it causes a ton of effort, and that's why they don't want you to do it.
I'm actually curious about that. Like, if someone has a failed suicide attempt, like, would the police press charges against that person?
It seems like a very Florida thing to do, I want to say. I would hope you would get the person help rather than do that.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, but talk about it being illegal, I don't know.
Yeah, like, man, how awful must you feel to first try to commit suicide and then be like, well, you didn't make it, and also here's your bill.
Yeah. Anyway, that's where I was standing on the whole ethical dilemma, I guess. Was, again, like, if science doesn't say one way or the other that it does anything, then it's like, I guess, kind of do what you want. And if the government, again, assuming that they actually are looking at it properly, if they say that it's not a big deal, then it's like, I guess, yeah, if the insurance companies want to throw that money at it for their own calculation, risk assessment, whatever, then I guess go ahead and do it.
And I guess if they're also offering the crop insurance, they're probably like, you'd rather it hit a crop. Well, theoretically, you would rather the seeding work and produce a lot of little hail early, or just have it rain out instead of hail out early, rather than, have the big chunks of hail like break windows in Calgary, because that cost adds up quickly.
Yeah. Well, and that was where you mentioned the question that I asked. Like, I used the trolley problem as a example, or as an analog for the situation that these hail mitigation people are embarking on. Basically choosing who gets the hail for the sake of other people.
Possibly.
Maybe not.
Because I think they did say the dream scenario was that it comes out as rain instead of hail. But continuing on,
it's like a trolley problem where the lever may or may not be hooked up to the track. And you're blindfolded, so you don't actually know which way the trolley went, but you're still pulling the lever with intent.
And the trolley might just turn into a splash wave, or a wave of water at the end instead of being the actual train.
Exactly. So it's a modified trolley problem.
A heavily modified trolley problem.
I don't know if have you seen the trolley problem memes on Facebook before? I know I've shared a couple. I don't know if you've
I've
come
definitely
across
seen
them.
a couple.
Yeah, so like there's a trolley problem memes page. I know they're on Facebook. I don't know if they're on other sites or like Twitter or Instagram or whatever. But they basically post variations of the trolley problem, similar to that the idea of hail mitigation being a trolley problem, but they'll replace the person pulling the lever with something, or they'll replace the trolley with something, or replace the people on the tracks with something, like to illustrate some other scenario. Like they had one like back when like Harambe was a thing in the news. They did like a Harambe trolley problem, right? So it's like, and again, that is actually a pretty good situation where there is a
Yeah,
trolley
that
problem.
that is a situational trolley problem. I want to say the modification I saw was probably on the subreddit wholesome memes. So it was like shower these people with love and affection or shower everyone with love and affection, and I was like furiously pulling the lever or something. So it could be shower everyone with love and affection, but yeah. These are my dark corners of the internet.
Yeah, there's a lot of dark corners on Reddit.
Yep.
There's a lot of bright corners too.
That's an understatement. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not quite 4chan, but you know.
No. At least the dark corners are often labeled or disclaimed as such.
Mhm.
So
Which is helpful.
it is helpful. Yes, quite.
Yeah, I was so jazzed about that talk. I hope he
It,
talks again.
I do
I
too.
even I even really liked that one he had that one picture which was like the first sort of proof tests that it might work, where they flew over a small cloud and dropped silver iodide on it, and you could see the strips where the silver iodide had hit because like it had nucleated and then fallen out. And I guess it was in those circumstances they definitively proved that cloud seeding worked, because it was this little cloud that wasn't actually doing anything. And then they dropped stuff on it and it rained a bit. And they were like, haha, would you look at that? But like, supercell's too complicated.
Yeah. Is that what that was relating to the supercell systems? Because I know they actually brought up, they qualified a lot of those statements, like the ones that the scientific agencies were putting out regarding cloud seeding, and they specifically mentioned that supercells are too chaotic and not easily quantifiable.
Yeah, and that's why they couldn't make a definitive call. It was
Right.
because of the supercell. And I mean, that makes sense because it's a very chaotic system, but at the same time, that's also the system of interest because that's the one that actually makes the hail you're worried about. So, like, what do you do?
Right. And yeah, maybe because I was about to say I'd be interested to hear the justifications or explanations from someone who has looked at this like a unbiased third party type thing, and their conclusion of it being inconclusive, I guess. You know, like where is that decision or judgment coming from? Like looking at these vertically integrated liquid plots, like to me that is fairly heavy evidence toward cloud seeding being a thing, like it working.
Well, I mean,
So
regardless of its efficacy, it is a thing. People do it.
I mean, it having an effect. That's I know people do it.
Yeah. I was actually sitting I was sitting in the gym before this, like working out and going, I wonder if he'd give us the plots. I wonder if we could just have those to look at. Wouldn't that be cool?
Like the ones he showed or other ones,
I would love to see all of the raw data and see if any, like, if you could make any sort of calls.
right? Well, I know the government has mandated that they keep records of all of their stuff, basically. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, that presentation he gave was using information that's presumably been archived.
That's possible. And also, he did, I think it was something like oh, hey guys, remember last Tuesday, all that hail? This is that storm. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd love to see more of it. So, we should look into that because we could possibly request it through some official channels, or maybe ask the guy, or we go for the super long con, not necessarily a con, but we go for the super long game. We both become meteorologists. We scorn the flashy TV side of things. And then
Wait, are
I'm
you talking about
guessing,
being weathermen or meteorologists? Those are two
man,
very different people.
I want to believe that most weathermen are meteorologists or have some meteorological training.
I want to believe that too, but
Okay, so before I doubt the entirety of my life, I think in as little as 10 to 15 years, we could probably get access to those plots. At that point, like 2 decade old plots that are probably not very good anymore. But
I think
what do
we
you
could do
say?
like a freedom of information request. That'd be my route.
You could even like fashion an aluminum foil hat and walk into the office, and that would lend credence to your freedom of information request. I
I
want to
think
know
so.
about the silver iodide. It's turning the frogs gay.
I was tempted to ask about chemtrails in the talk.
I'm so sorry you didn't. Oh my
I
god.
I felt like that'd be too mocking of the whole idea. Like
I would
I
have
was
disowned you as a friend immediately after. Like, I wouldn't have been seen with you the rest of the night, but that would have been hilarious.
like a room full of weather enthusiasts, and you're asking about chemtrails. That's like going into like some medical talk and asking about like anti-vaxxers. Like you're
Like
like,
that thing that happened when we were there.
I guess that did actually did. I was thinking about that movie and being like, I feel like something did happen in that movie, and that actually was they asked about the vaccines during that thing.
The one guy from the back, like, have you seen the documentary Vax? Did you know all the big pharma companies are a bunch of crooks? What do you have to say about that? It's like, gosh.
Yeah,
Ah, very entertaining.
but at least now we know that when someone brings up chemtrails, it'd be like, if you're referring to the silver iodide cloud seeding, then yes, that is a thing. Mind controlling substances, no, those are not a thing.
No, no. It's surprising how little silver iodide it takes, too. It's like
Yes.
on most of their trips, unless it's a really bad night, they go through less than 50 pounds, like less than a really big bag of potatoes, like one of those commercial bags.
Yeah. Yeah, he referred to it as a bag of fertilizer,
Hmm.
which is a more apt
Yeah,
comparison
he
given that
knows his
it's a
audience
chemical.
in Alberta.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fertilizer is chemicals and silver iodide is chemicals. I mean, everything's a chemical, but you know what I mean.
I went down that rabbit hole recently too. You can check my Facebook feed. It's all
Did you?
there. I did. I looked up several different definitions of what a chemical substance is, and it's because someone said they had these cloths or something for cleaning, and they said, it disinfects naturally because it has silver woven into it, so it doesn't use chemicals. But then they went, "But wait, is the silver a chemical?" And then I looked up a bunch of different definitions, and I came to the conclusion that I don't know. I have I have the degree, but I don't know what a chemical is.
How do you not know?
Well, because some things will say it's a purified substance, in which case, like, yeah, the silver probably is a purified substance. It was taken from ore, it was processed into silver, it was what do you call, pulled into the little fibers, and then it was woven into a cloth, and that's a purified substance in a cloth. But like you could also say it's I think they say it's like manufactured or like it whatever the definition was, it referred more to like compounds and things like that, because then a compound is definitely not silver because silver is just silver. It's not it's
Mm,
not compounded with any other substances. But that's not the only definition of a chemical. So I can
Right.
tell you what some of those atoms will do in very specific circumstances, but I can't tell you what a chemical is definitively.
My understanding was a chemical was like anything that has like an element in it, which would be everything.
Well, you can also say one definition I know is anything that any substance you know the structure of which you know the structure. A substance whose structure you know, structure or composition. And then in that case, yep, that mic is on. And then in that case, the silver is a chemical because you know the structure and the composition. But you could also argue that a tree is a chemical because you know the structure and composition roughly of what makes up the cellulose in that
Well, it has
tree.
carbon in it, right? That's the idea of like that's the structure that you know is the carbon in the tree, isn't it?
Well, specifically the cellulose, like, because it's not just carbon, because then it would be like a tree that's a diamond or a tree that's like graphite.
Right, but and I guess that's what I mean. I don't know. Is it
You
by
know
the
the carbons, the hydrogens, the oxygens.
right? So by the definition, if the definition is anything that has an element in it, then nothing would not be a chemical.
Correct.
But I feel like there should be some distinction between things not being chemicals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I'd say you could cue the angry letters now, but we don't really get those anymore.
I like the approach of so okay, so you're saying that when someone's like, "Oh, it doesn't have chemicals, it's healthy." It's like, well, everything has chemicals. Like everything is a chemical. Like it's
Well,
that's
those
not
people are
as
also
is
those
that
people are also grossly mistaken in most cases because they're like, "Oh, I use vinegar as my cleaner and it doesn't have any chemicals in it." Well, yes, it does. It has ethanoic acid with the IUPAC naming. You might know it as acetic acid or
vitamin
I don't know,
C?
probably some other one. But it's wine that was naturally converted to vinegar and that's a natural disinfectant. So it's better for you, you know? Yeah, like it's or
So
like you can use
I
vitamin
guess
C and it's not chemicals. Well, yes, vitamin C is a chemical. It's purified or it's either synthesized or it's isolated and purified.
that's what I'm wondering. Is like where is the line of that statement not being accurate?
I don't because like I am getting animated on this question. You can talk hail to me all you want, but like so there was at one point a theory not a theory, a hypothesis. Anyway, there was this thing called vitalism and they believed that living things had uh, some specific attribute that we couldn't necessarily recreate in an artificial environment. And they believed that urea was one such example. And I think, forgive me, I think it's a single carbon with nitrogens on either side, fully saturated, more or less, with hydrogen. Structure is almost certainly different from that, but it's like carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen, maybe some oxygen in there. Anywho, um, so urea was believed to be this thing that we could never synthesize because animals make it and it's just special. It's something that comes from the vital spirit of living beings. And then
That's what
someone,
I think every morning when I wake up.
I'm about to blow your mind then. Several hundred years ago, someone synthesized urea and they were like, yo, what up? And that was the counterexample to vitalism that, I mean, people probably still believed it, but, you know, that was the first nail in the coffin.
Mm. So where were
And
you
so
going with
then,
this? I was,
well, because then you could say, like, well, if it's not a chemical, or you could say that if living beings make it, then it's not a chemical, but that the supposition there is that there is something to the theory of vitalism and there isn't. And even then, like, I think some people use more like vitalistic definitions. And apparently that was one reason that we were allowed to use acetone in undergrad labs and just kind of fling it everywhere. Because I think it's either acetone or ethanol or something like that. It's one of those solvents, but diabetics exhale it in very small amounts, and that's why it doesn't count as a chemical because your body creates it naturally.
Are you saying you can get drunk off
Consistence
of
of
a
natural.
diabetic's breath?
Not if it's acetone. If it's acetone, then like, I mean, in the amounts it's created, it's obviously non-lethal. They're alive when they're exhaling it, but
I think I heard maybe it was on an episode of House or one of those shows where a guy came in and his body just naturally produced alcohol. So he was like always drunk.
oh, that's that's actually something that can happen with brewer's yeast. It'll set up shop in your gut, and then when you
Mhm.
have a starchy meal, you just get wasted.
Oh, that's yeah, I think that's what it was. Every time they had sugar, what is
Yeah,
sugar? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Like
sugar
when
and
they had
water.
sweet, they'd get like hammered.
Hmm. And I remember reading a case file about it, and like the guy was just getting just crazy amounts of alcohol in his bloodstream because when you drink, it's going through the whole digestive system, and especially like in populations similar to ours, you like it gets processed a little bit before it hits the bloodstream. But once it's in your gut, that's just like it's right in there, no filtration.
Mm. So where did we land on the chemical versus non-chemical thing?
I still don't know.
Okay. There'll be follow up, I guess.
I will there. It's just going to be like a never-ending philosophical conversation.
I guess. I just want to be confident in my reply to people who say that they're not comfortable using chemicals or eating food with chemicals in them.
Well, then you can't eat food.
Can you? I don't know. You're saying you don't know if that's an accurate
Well,
statement.
there's going to be chemicals in the food.
Will there?
I mean, you could have isolates that you would consider chemicals, and those things will be in the food.
What if I have just like natural, organic, gluten-free bread?
Then it's
That
not natural if
that
it's
sounds that
free.
sounds so healthy. No chemicals.
Wheat naturally has gluten in it, though.
Is wheat a chemical?
I don't know. Is it? What do you think?
Tweet at us. Hashtag chemicals are great.
Is butter a carb? Is gluten a chemical?
I think is butter a carb is a fairly established answered question.
You know, it may be a little more debated than you might think.
Is it?
I don't actually know. It's just a movie reference. I didn't realize it at first when Rob said it, but then he said it, and really and truly, I just need to rewatch Mean Girls.
Mm, I haven't watched that one in a long time.
You want to have a movie night?
I do.
Cool. All right.
Let's do it.
Well, on that bombshell, yeah. Do you have? Was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
I think we covered most of the stuff.
Yeah.
Again, my apologies for not having my notes in front of me. We basically talked about this without
Oh, that's
mentioning
okay.
any specific names or organizations or anything. But
I didn't actually take any notes, so for me to criticize you would be profoundly hypocritical.
this is true enough.
I want to do what I feel Rob's portion of the show would be and say that the relevant hashtags from the presentation were hashtag ABStorm and hashtag SKStorm.
It's
And
true.
that's how it's discussed on Twitter. You can do that
Yes,
on there.
you can. We will have the links to the organizations involved in this presentation in the show notes for those interested in learning more about storm chasing and weather science and all that kind of good stuff. The people there did seem very knowledgeable and cool people to talk to for sure.
Oh man, it was super cool. If you once we figure out who the guy actually was, I highly recommend you go to any talks he gives because it was really neat. He had a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to say.
And they showed a couple like weather picture excuse me, weather pictures as well. So I presume there's a handful of photographers that are kind of in the community as well. So I know photography is a thing. So if you're interested in photography and looking for new things to photograph, then that's a community to check out. Some pretty cool stuff going on for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's about it, I think.
Me too.
How was your Fitotron today?
I don't think the HVAC system in that gym is super robust, so I got wet. I was wearing the Fitotron 5000 shirt that you got for me, and it was drenched.
Hmm.
It was to the point where like the sweat from like my stomach kind of area was coming up and meeting with the sweat that had come down my neck, and like I also do you know one arm rows where you kind of like you lean yourself over a bench and then you just
Yeah,
pull the weight back towards you.
I like that one.
I get pretty drippy when that happens because I have a prominent nose and also a beard. So the sweat will drip off my nose and also it will kind of collect in my beard as it runs down my face. But then as I tilt forward, it's like, oh, hey, look. Just like it had suddenly been seated or something and it just drops all the liquid. So it was sweaty. I feel like it was probably a good workout.
That's
I'm
good.
not 100% sure.
Do you track like how heavy you can lift and that kind of stuff?
Ish. It's not, I'm not doing like a strong lifts program or anything, so I'm not increasing every week. It's more if I feel that I think I'm supposed to, if I can do more than like 13, if I'm going into 13 to 15 reps, then it's time to up the weight. And I've upped the weight twice since starting 3 months ago for a couple exercises.
Mm.
But I've also dropped it in some cases because I realized I wasn't doing it with proper form. And if I'm not going to do it with proper form, why do it at all?
Unless you're like a gym bro.
This is why I will never get jacked because I'm like, well, I mean, I could lift a heavier weight, but why? What's the point?
You've got to do like the 2-inch bench presses that people do.
Yeah. Oh, they love those. Just queue up. I don't think we can do it legally, but if you could queue up Jennifer Lopez's "Do It Well" intro, that's
Hmm.
that's how I do it at the gym.
Okay. Is that a video or a song?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make note of it. Do it well intro.
That's a note.
It is a note.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing ball hockey weekly for the past
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Are you still doing the 9 round?
No, so I stopped that. My last time there was 2 weeks ago.
Okay. And judging from the heart rate monitoring I've seen from your floor hockey, it seems like that is a reasonable substitution.
Yes, quite. I still don't know. We'll have to have a separate topic on this another time, maybe when Rob gets back. But how to interpret heart rate monitor calorie burn, but that's a separate thing. But based on that, my average and max heart rates are basically exactly the same as they are in the kickboxing I was doing.
Okay.
So I haven't started any weight training and that kind of thing, but I do have, well, I had a week trial for the Y. So I'm planning on doing the full membership for there. So I can at least use their showers after like a run when I go during the day.
Yeah.
But hopefully I'll start a weight program once I find a good one to start. So
I feel like, I mean, if I was biking more, like if I was in a position where I could bike to work, what I would really like to do is do just cycling all day, air day in the summer, and then just do weight training in the winter.
yeah,
I just think like it's a nice activity you can do inside.
I wanted to do that, but needing to pick up Emma after work, it kind of throws a wrench in being able to reliably commute back on a bike.
Yeah.
So like I'd have to.
just just throw a seat on the back there.
Well, we do have like the trail thing, so I could like trail her bike behind mine, but that would not
Get
be
back
ideal.
home in like 2 hours. No biggie.
Yeah. So like I could drive with my bike, then park, ride my bike the rest of the way, and then ride my bike back and then drive from there. But there's the timing, it doesn't work out. Like
Mhm.
from when I leave work, I basically have to drive the whole way to make it back in time. So I wouldn't really
Right.
have time to ride my bike and then get the car and then
Yeah.
from there. So but no, I'm able to fit in like a 5K run at lunch. So that seems to satisfy
It's
my
good.
desire to exercise.
You
So
I sincerely and truly hate running, so you have my sincerest kudos.
thank you. I am getting in better shape. I was able to score a couple goals last time
Nice.
in hockey. Just pretty excited. But I
Sniper
actually
bar down. Did you have yourself a celly, bud?
I didn't go bar down. I don't get those kinds of goals. I usually
Oh,
get
okay.
garbage goals or tap ins or something. It's not. A couple guys
Hey,
went bar down.
still a goal.
Yeah, there's definitely a celly though. Don't worry,
Good, good.
do not disappoint. Do you know what a healthy average and max heart rate is for intense physical activity?
Oh, it's usually like prescribed by your age, I think.
Because mine is when I look at the zone or whatever, like it's always max or higher. Like I know it's prescribed by age, but like even my resting heart rate is quite a bit higher than I think it's supposed to be.
What's your resting heart rate?
Like 90 ish.
Oh, that is high.
Yeah.
Do you have low blood pressure?
I don't know.
Because typically those are associated.
I'll have to check. I think in the times where I've checked, like at shoppers or whatever, like it hasn't been abnormally high. It's just I think my heart rate's always been
No,
higher than it's
low.
supposed to be, or
Or
normally. Oh,
your
low blood
the
pressure. Yeah,
pressure,
right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, no,
Because
the
if it's
blood
low
pressure.
pressure, your heart has to work harder to pump
Right,
it through.
right. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, and that's why I've been hoping that through exercising more, like my heart rate will ideally start going down. I think that's in theory what it's supposed to do as your body gets used to
Yeah.
physical activity more. But I haven't really seen that. Like my max heart rate has more or less stayed the same when I'm
Hmm.
exercising. So we'll have to see. Like it's still fairly early in my getting back onto the physical activity horse. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. My blood pressure has come down from like the borderline like bad to into the normal range. So I'm happy with that.
Bad as in high or low.
High.
So what causes a high blood pressure?
Uh, Salt,
Whatever.
stress,
Hmm.
variety of factors,
So
lethargy.
your exercise has helped.
Yeah,
It seems
yeah. Since I've started going to the gym, it's dropped, which is
nice.
good.
Cool.
My resting heart rate has stayed more or less the same, which makes sense because I'm not actually doing like cardiovascular exercise usually. But it is odd because I'm going by the Fitbit to tell me what my resting heart rate is. But I have woken up in the morning and then looked at my Fitbit and it's just on heart rate for whatever reason. And it's lower than what it tells me my resting heart rate is. So shrug.
While you're active, your heart rate is
Oh
lower.
no, no. While I'm lying down in bed, it's lower than my resting heart rate.
Oh, I see. I think yeah, the resting heart rate. Well, I guess it depends on like your emotional environment too. Like if
There
you're
must be like a
sleeping.
definitional structure or something like that.
A what now?
Or sorry, a definitional issue, like of what resting heart rate actually is. Like it could be sitting in a chair versus lying down or something. I don't
Right.
know.
Or just I mean like if you're engaged in like a mental exercise, like your heart rate's going to be higher because you're thinking and possibly stressing about something versus lying
Yeah.
down, getting ready
I'm
to sleep.
I'm also just on the note of having a heart rate monitor on myself on my person at all times. There have been some conversations at work, and I can go back and look at the heart rate monitor for the day and go, "Oh, that's exactly when that happened."
So, have you actually done that before?
Yeah.
For what purpose? Just curiosity?
Uh well, like, cuz you're standing there and you can feel your heart pounding as things get discussed, and then, like, out of curiosity go, "Wait a minute. I wonder what that actually looks like on a graph."
Oh, so like it was literally just you wanted to see what it looked like throughout the
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Turns out it looks like a spike.
Yeah. Who'da thunk?
Yeah. Crazy.
I should probably let you get to bed. You're probably
I need to
getting
bathe,
tired.
so
Yes,
that's important.
it is.
Although I've tried to go to bed early and it just doesn't seem to work. So what? I don't know. I got
I find it
45 minutes.
yeah, I find I don't feel sleepy after exercise. Like I feel physically like spent, but I'm not like mentally tired usually.
One would define, I believe the psychological definition would be aroused, or the
Hmm,
term. You're mentally
spicy.
aroused. That's right.
That
All right. Good talk, Mike.
was a
I
good
hope it
talk.
I hope it